And welcome to The Outsiders. I am Josh Gross, joined as always by Jeff Sherwood, talking about mixed martial arts. Thanks as always to the people who have subscribed. If you're interested in our show, please subscribe. Please hit the little button for the reminder there. We're doing these things once a week, and then on big fight nights when Jeff is available, because he's a much busier man than I am, we will do the live reaction show as well. So lots to talk about this week, Jeff. There were fights, of course, on the weekend. There's fights every weekend in the UFC, a smattering of Bellator from time to time. We'll talk about the weekend results. We'll also talk about a lot of news, Jeff, some fights breaking, some big announcements on free agents. Plenty to discuss. How are you this week?
I'm good. I'm good. A little tired today, but I'm here. I'm good. A little shitty internet, and I don't know what's going on with my computer. Too much porn.
Well, what else is new, my friend? Because this has been your MO for as long as I've known you. Whether you're joking or not, it doesn't really matter because that's what people believe to be true. So let's get into it. The fights this weekend, Alexander Rakic sort of put a exclamation point, I think, on his victory, a real downer on Anthony Smith's career, I think, at this point. It was the result that I expected. I thought Rakic would be the more talented, better fighter coming to this. He really delivered on it. Was there any surprises in the performance from him or from Anthony Smith, who comes out the loser, kind of like a roller coaster now for Smith, looking so great against Alexander Gustafsson, and gets destroyed against Glover Teixeira, and now we have him losing pretty handily to Rakic. Hit both of those guys. Thoughts on that fight, thoughts on their futures?
Anthony Smith it didn't seem like he had anything in there. I mean, even when they were on the feet for the most part, it just those leg kicks hurt him. I think they hurt him early. And Rakic just seemed way too strong and aggressive for him. It was weird. It was weird with Smith because, I mean, once they got to the ground, I know you got to fight to get up or something, but it didn't even seem like, I'm sure he was, but watching it, it didn't seem like he was trying too hard to try and get up or change positions or anything. It was just one of those fights, and you were just like, oh man, this is a main event. Like, I get it, but he had nothing. He had nothing for Rakic.
I think the leg kicks really hurt him. He's talked afterwards in the aftermath of that fight about the injuries he sustained to his legs. He really couldn't do much. I mean, he couldn't stand because he took a pounding. He's got a reputation for having a good guard, like kind of a jiu-jitsu guard. I've never really seen that. Smith's always been like a tough guy to me, a brawler, not overly skilled, and he can be exposed. And I think against someone like Rakic, who's more talented in the game, has more skills, that's really what happened. To me, he's a contender in the light heavyweight class. Part of the mix of fighters that we've talked about, Jeff, now sort of trying to establish themselves in the wake of John Jones moving up to heavyweight. How do you see him fitting into that picture? He's lost he lost his last fight to Volkan Ozdemir. That was a tight fight, but I think he's as talented as a lot of people in that weight class. Can he assert himself? Is he a guy that you think is going to break out in that weight class in the UFC?
I don't know. It's hard to judge because, like I said, it didn't seem like Anthony Smith had it that night. And obviously the leg kicks or whatever. His loss to Ozdemir, Ozdemir is very, we had high hopes for him, but he doesn't seem to be fulfilling them. And Rakic had the win over Manawa, which looked great, but I've been saying from the start I didn't think Jimmy was one of the top of the weight classes. He came in as a, they were running hype for him for a little while, and I never thought he was going to live up to it. So I think it's still out. I think the jury's still out. He's going to have to fight somebody. Because even though, he has the win, Anthony Smith, Manawa, that he still hasn't had that fight that you're like, okay. I mean, but he's looked good in those fights, but he hasn't beat that opponent that you definitely come away from that fight going, okay, he can compete in the top five. I'm not there yet.
Right. That fight's got to be Jerry Prochaska. I think everybody on Twitter was screaming about Prochaska afterwards. That fight makes total sense. In the UFC, it's the fight that makes the most sense for me, I think. And I hope the UFC makes that fight. I think leading in, I noticed that the Chiron said UFC 254 is amazing. And it is. And I left the Chiron up by mistake. And we'll talk about that later.
What is it called?
What's that?
What is it called?
I had this lovely Chiron up. This
Chiron. That's called a Chiron?
Yeah, like the little graphic that they put up on TV. It's a Chiron.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's the little TV business. Show business talk for you, Jeff.
I would no. Of course, I wouldn't know what that meant.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. Have you seen that card?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Who hasn't? Right.
It's the potential card. It's not all of it's official yet, but it's shaping up to be beautiful, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. More on the weekend. Obviously, Neil Magny was in the co-main event against Robbie Lawler. Short notice for Lawler. I think even with a full camp, he's not going to look good against Neil Magny, who's about the worst kind of style fight for Robbie Lawler you get. Is this a case of just the wrong opponent for Robbie Lawler, or is this a case of Lawler is kind of really at the tail end of his career, doesn't have it anymore? I mean, we get into these conversations. I think they're worth having sometimes. Robbie looks stifled to me, not a lot of life to him. But again, I credit Neil Magny more than I say Robbie Lawler doesn't have it necessarily. Mm-hmm. How do you see it?
And we tend to do that a lot, right? Yeah. When somebody beats an opponent like Robbie Lawler, we put more blame on Robbie than we give credit to the winner, which isn't always fair, but it happens a lot. But, like I said last week, I thought this was a strange fight for Robbie. I thought that it was strange that he took it on a short notice. The matchup wasn't great, as you said, and it definitely worked out that way. And watching that fight unfold, and I was like, I kind of had a feeling. I had a feeling about this, that it was going to kind of play out that way. And I mean, Robbie's been fighting for a long time, so it could be a little bit of both. But I like to, give Neil Magny more of a pat on the back than saying that Robbie's no good.
Yeah. It's not that Robbie's no good. He was undertrained for this fight. I think styles make fights for Robbie, and they've always done that. He is someone who could be controlled. He's so explosive and so dangerous that he's gotten away with a lot of things. But again, Magny was like really the worst kind of fight for him. Mm-hmm. Tall, long, like leverage, grapple, fine. He could strike with him, put him against the fence. On the inside, he was really debilitating for Lawler. Lawler couldn't do much, and that's just kind of how it goes against Neil Magny, who's, I think, excellent and definitely deserving of high-profile fights in that weight class. If there's one fight for Lawler before we let this go, who would it be? I mean, if Lawler's got a retirement fight in him, and that I'm not trying to retire Robbie Lawler, but if there's like a fight that the UFC could make that all of a sudden people will be like, oh my God, I want to see that. What is it?
Just give him somebody that's going to stand with them.
So like Mike Perry? I mean, is that – do you like that?
I mean, when he beats Mike Perry up, what does that do for him?
Nothing, except it's an exciting fight. Isn't he that's the point we're talking about now for Lawler's career, right? That would be exciting.
That would be a good fight. Going back to Magny's game plan, that we talked about that, and he did both. I thought very well. It was exactly what I said. He's got to push him against the fence. He's got to be close, but then at the same time, he's got to stay at range and kind of stay away from him. And I thought Magny had a great game plan, and he did both very well. No,
definitely did, and you expect that from him. That's what he gets, a very cerebral fighter, smart fighter, and he can put it all together. He's obviously skilled, and at 6'3" in that weight class, he doesn't look so skinny, right? He actually looks like he fits into that weight class. His length is obviously an advantage for him. There was also some other performances on this card. I thought Alexa Grasso moving to 125 was good for her. That was a nice performance, a nice win, I think a debut in that weight class. And also Ricardo Lamas, who kicked off the televised main portion, wins that fight, then goes out. And he says he's going to retire. What do you make of the fighters who retire on a victory, who look like they may have some life left in them? Obviously, that's a decision, a very personal decision. But you see a guy win like that or a woman win like that, do you say, hey, no, you got to hang on? Like maybe there's a chance you get that title shot, you move forward. Or do you like to see them go out with their hand raised that way? I mean, we saw with Cormier, obviously you go out in a loss. It was a pinnacle fight, a championship fight that's a little different. But the fighter who goes out like that on a win, looking like they have some life left to them, what do you make of that decision?
It's different. I actually, as long as he stays retired, I have more respect of them going out on a win than a fighter in the cage that gets beat up but takes a loss and says, I'm going to retire. And then they're back in 4 months, 5 months. So maybe this is a real retirement. Obviously, to go out and retire off of a win isn't that likely in MMA. I mean, not many people do that. So, he's been doing it a long time. He's been exciting for a long time. I mean, we've gotten a lot of great highlights out of Ricardo Lamas over the years. And, I stated when we talked about the card last week that I always enjoy watching Lamas fight. And he always, comes in to fight and puts on a performance. And, you hate to lose guys like that, but if they can actually get a win and seriously think about their family and have something to do beyond fighting or whatever, and they retire, that's great. I would love to see more people retire being successful than get beat up 5 fights in a row and then decide, I probably don't have it anymore.
How do you see Lamas? I'm not so sure about his career. He's a guy who earned title fights, earned high-profile fights, never seemed to step up to the moment. Obviously, if you fight legends like Jose Aldo and you lose, that's okay and understandable. It seemed like he had trouble sort of getting over that mental hurdle at times as well. Do you look at him, because he was like one of these fighters who established themselves in WEC, do you see him in the vein of like, not like a Uriah Faber who held on to the title, but kind of like in that mold? Or was he just one of these guys who fought for a while, made a career of it, made a living out of it, and then will kind of move beyond to the next generation, won't really think too much of him as a pioneer in any kind of way?
Yeah, unfortunately for Lamas, I don't think that he's going to go down with people in, 3 years from now, we'll be talking about how great Ricardo Lamas was. Yeah. I don't think that, but there were a lot of great moments in his career. I mean, if you look at his losses, I mean, let's look here. So he lost I'll start at the Aldo, Chad Mendez, Max Holloway, Josh Emmett, the Bektik. I mean, Calvin Kadar. Those are all great fighters.
Right.
Above average, those are quality guys. So, there wasn't really Danny Castillo. If you go back to the WEC, Uriel Alcantara, that was a knockout. But there was for the most part, the fights that he was supposed to win, he won, and there was never really that screw up. So there was never that bad day at the office for the most part for him.
Yeah, not until he got into that sort of big moment. And so, he would rise to the occasion, work his way up, showed a lot of skill, but then he got to that big fight and it just never seemed to work out for him. That was the last UFC card of August. They have an incredibly busy schedule. They promote every week this month, and I think, through like 2057 at this point. Alistair Overeem is headlining this Saturday against Augusto Sakai. Some other interesting fighters on the card as well. Michelle Pereira, someone people like to watch. Sijara Eubanks, she's pretty tough. Getting a high-profile fight. But I think this is sort of the real – it's hard to even call it an appetizer. It's sort of like you're just remembering that there are fights until the real schedule kicks in this month. September is fantastic, Jeff. We're looking at Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira on the 12th. Colby Covington against Tyron Woodley on the 19th. Of course, there's undercard as well. These are main events. And then Israel Adesanya against Paulo Costa on the 26th, which is just like all-world kind of fight. Is there something in this month that stands out to you? Not obviously Adesanya, Costa maybe, and some of the main events, but are there any other fights this month that you're looking forward to? And how do you feel keeping up with this schedule that the UFC has really built into this point?
Well, the schedule's been crazy for a long time now. And even getting crazier, but I'm really looking forward to the Colby Covington Tyron Woodley fight. But like you said, all those main events were top of the class. So, we'll see how Colby comes back after the Usman fight and how he looks in there, because, before that, there were, Colby Covington was a lot of the talk. Usman slowed that down a little bit, and Tyron Woodley. So Tyron's coming off of a two fight skid. Colby's lost his last fight, so we'll see. Both these guys are top quality fighters, regardless of what you think about them as a fan. From a fan's perspective, and I know a lot of people for some reason don't like either of these guys, and most of it has to do with things outside of the cage, which I don't always think's fair. So, this is a fight that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, it's got all the drama. I mean, it's built in. Competitively, it checks all the boxes as well. So I'm with you. I think that's a super interesting fight as we head into a busy stretch. Of course, everything's busy in September. Want to do the winners and losers. Remember, we did this a few weeks ago, kind of like jump around, hit different topics, winners, losers, as we discuss what's happening in mixed martial arts. Jeff, did you catch Dana White at the Republican National Convention on Thursday?
I watched some of it, and I'll tell you one thing that I was actually surprised he actually spoke well. I mean, for the most part. I mean, regardless of what was coming out of his mouth, he was composed. It wasn't the normal Dana White when you stick a microphone in front of his face. I mean, he didn't even cuss. I mean, how many times do you see a microphone?
The bar is so low that he's not even a cuss. Okay.
I don't really, me, I'm not really into the whole politics thing, but I will let you know, and you'll be proud of this. I did register to vote this time around.
Awesome.
So
congratulations.
That's a plus. So,
everybody needs to go register to vote. If you're not, everybody needs to go do it.
Yeah. This is really important. I think this election, not that any of them aren't important, but I think this one is really important. And I felt personally some of the pushback from some of the appointed, people in office that I felt the need that I need to get out there and vote.
I'm glad to hear that. Whatever his message was, the reflection of Dana White, like the UFC president, on the company. I mean, people who don't really follow UFC, and there's a lot more people who don't follow UFC and mixed martial arts than do. Immediately there was pushback on his statements. I didn't think he was overly composed. I thought he was yelling and bulging and kind of being arrogant. Dana White is what I was getting from that, watching him speak. But forget his message and his point of view and his political persuasion and all that stuff. We obviously know he supports the president. Taking such a political position, it's so different, even though we see the NBA getting political in their messaging and the Major League Soccer and their messaging and the NFL now talking about a lot of these things, but more in-house. You have someone like Dana White speaking publicly about his position. I don't think it's going to affect the UFC's bottom line, because I don't think enough people care about mixed martial arts for it to really do that. But I thought he would be less political than he was. He staked out positions on issues that I was surprised. I didn't hear him hit out on Democrats. I didn't hear him hit out on Biden, but he took out positions that are not supportive of sort of Democratic positions or Biden positions. And that was more political than I expected him to be. He spoke in 2016 and sort of just talked about the general idea of who President Trump was at the time, candidate Trump. And I was expecting more of that. Did he feel more political to you than you would have expected? He did.
Seemed like it. The one thing that I was thinking while I was listening to it was, I wonder who wrote this for him. That was the feeling I got. And you said you seemed like he was yelling a little bit or whatever, but I mean, maybe I'm just used to that.
Yes,
because that's pretty much how he always, he always comes off to me. So
you're very used to it. Yes.
his face didn't turn beet red though, like normal when he has a microphone in front of him. So, for me, for the most part, I thought he was pretty mellow. I thought that somebody wrote out some nice things for him to say, and he did it. I'm sure the people that gave him the info, they felt he covered it. I mean,
so winner or loser, in a way.
I like you said, I don't think it matters for the UFC bottom line or anything like that. I'm sure that most people saw him and they're like, "Who's that? Why is this guy on here?"
Yeah.
My mom got a kick out of it. She watches all that stuff 24/7, and she's the one that came running, and I didn't even know it was on at the time. And she came running and she said, "Oh, your buddy's on TV." And I was like, "My buddy?" She's like, "Oh, Dana." So we turned it on and watched it. So I missed some of it, but I mean, I don't really know how you could call him a winner or a loser for that. But as far as the UFC, I think that it really didn't matter too much what he really said. I don't think it was ever really going to affect the UFC in any way.
Yeah, and it's interesting, obviously, for the UFC because the UFC ownership pretty clearly is supporting the Democratic candidate and the Democratic policies. But then you have the president of the company who's the face, really sort of out there on the other side. They're playing both sides here. So I don't think there's any danger. And quite honestly, they want to support President Trump and his policies because they don't want an expansion of the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, and that's a big deal for them. So, very interesting. I thought his speech and the way that he approached things a little more on the edge than I expected it to be. Of course, the UFC is busy, and the things that we care about generally with the UFC, the fights. It sounds like we're going to get George Masvidal and Nate Diaz 2, the BMF Part 2. Winner or loser here, just the idea of this, because it was supposed to be a one-off. Dana White said this title would never be fought for again. Now he's talking about, they want to do and they want to put the title up again. Like, do we need to see this fight? Does it not need to be BMF 2? The whole concept, winner or loser at this stage.
I don't think we need to see this fight, but I don't think you'll get too many complaints. Regardless of what Dana said in the past or whatever, but fans like to see the Diaz brothers fight for the most part, win or lose. They just take an interest in it, and what the heck, run it out there again. It's going to probably be a main event on some card, which will be fine.
Yeah, it'll be a pay-per-view main event. I mean, there's no question about it. It did big business. So winner or loser, George Masvidal or Nate Diaz? Do we see Nate having the wherewithal, the ability to – because George looked very comfortable in that first fight. Prior to the cut, I mean, sure, we expect Nate to sort of get rolling late, but he took a lot of damage prior to that, and there's no reason to suspect he wouldn't in a rematch. Winner or loser in this contest, Jeff? Who do you think?
I think they're both winners.
Yeah, but who's going to win? Give it to me.
Who's going to win? I don't see the fight going much different than the first
Masvidal again.
Yeah. You just wonder how motivated the Diaz brothers are with these long times that go by of them not fighting in the cage and them always say, you got to pay me and blah, 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 or whatever. I think that you have to get in there regularly to kind of get in a groove and put everything together. So I really wonder sometimes, like, how dedicated is he? Obviously, when he gets into the cage, when either of the Diaz brothers get into the cage, they don't want to lose. I know that much, but and I think they both probably train every day, no matter what. But
I think they used to. I'm not sure that's true anymore.
Yeah,
I think they used to.
I don't know.
Nate will be motivated. Nate will be prepared. Nate takes this seriously. When he signs on the dotted line, he comes to fight. I don't think
there's too much that he can do against Masvidal. I think we saw that already.
He has to start faster. I mean, that's the bottom line. He has to start faster. I don't think he got going.
And he never really does, though.
Yeah, he's going to have to, because I think if George gets it rolling and is very comfortable and George is in shape, what what do you think about just the idea of making this fight? Because there's so many fights they could have put Masvidal in. There's so many fights they could have put Diaz in. I want to see George Masvidal fight Leon Edwards. I get that that's not the big money fight, or it's not the fight that they want, either his management or him. But if you're going to get this division rolling, and if he's really a number one contender, or if he's in that class, like, he should take that fight. They have history. He slugged the guy in the back of the UFC in London. So that's the fight I want to see. I hope we see it someday. Leon Edwards doesn't deserve to be snubbed, you know, and we'll see. And for Nate, I mean, you can kind of throw Nate into any scenario, and he'll make it work. You know, this is the UFC. They've got to find events, and this is one for them. So
it's an easy one. It's a no-brainer. I mean, it's just like throw it out there, and it doesn't really matter of anything else or any other fights they could have or whatever. This is an easy one. You just write it down on paper and be like, yeah, okay, that's going to do well. That's fine. So
the low-hanging fruit. Yeah, they're good with that. Speaking of low-hanging fruit, Brock Lesnar is a free agent. He's obviously a guy who gets headlines. People know who he is. They love to see what he's doing, whether it's pro wrestling or anything. But who would be winner and loser here by signing him? Let's sort of go through this. Would the UFC be a winner or loser by signing Brock Lesnar?
Money-wise, I think the UFC would be a winner. Much more than Bellator.
So Bellator, winner or loser by signing Brock Lesnar?
I think that would be a loser if they did that. It's funny because we just had this conversation at work, and none of these guys watch MMA on a regular basis. Two of them used to be big fans, like starting back at UFC 5, you know, on. They kind of lost interest of, you know, gotten a family and everything. So they basically told me, like, I don't have every Saturday night to sit in front of the TV and watch it. And I understand that. I totally get that. And, you know, I threw it out. I was like, so, you know, who would you guys like to see Brock Lesnar fight? And I said, you know, they're talking about maybe possibly Fedor and Bellator, or, you know, John Jones in the UFC. All of them, hands down, said John Jones.
Sure.
And two of them knew. I mean, they know exactly who Fedor is. But, you know, my thought is, and I didn't know, they asked me the question and I didn't know the answer, is how old is Lesnar now? I don't even know his age anymore.
He's like one of these guys that doesn't have an age. He's from parts unknown.
Right. He doesn't. I mean, he doesn't look a day older than the first time, you know, he stepped into the octagon, right?
He is 43 years old.
So it's not too bad. You know, me personally, and I don't think that there's a fight that you could put Brock Lesnar in that would really have any effect in, I mean, unless he came in and knocked out Stipe, you know, that would be like, whoa, shit. But I don't think there's any other fight that would really mean a whole lot, whether he wins or loses. So me personally, even though we had said we would like to see John Jones fight Stipe next, if Lesnar's going to fight somebody, I would like to see him fight John Jones.
Wow. I have no interest in seeing him fight Fedor Emelianenko. That fight's 10 years too late.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that.
I totally get why Bellator would want to sign him, because your buddies know who he is and they would tune in and watch, and it'd be a big rating for, I guess, CBS Sports Network. It sounds like Bellator's moving over there. But that fight feels sad to me, and it's not something I really want to watch. I do not want to see him fight John Jones in John Jones' first fight at heavyweight. I do not want to see that fight. I think it's a big mistake not to do Miocic Jones. I'm hammering this on Twitter, and for whatever it's worth. Obviously, I'm not vested, right? I'm not making a dime. It's not my business. I'm just like interested in the pure competitive aspect of what that would be. Mm-hmm. The thing that makes the most sense to me is this scenario. You book Miocic Jones. Worst case scenario is John Jones loses to Stipe Miocic, right? So John Jones loses to the best UFC heavyweight of all time. Fine, it's his first fight at heavyweight. people are going to give him a little leeway. What you do then is you book him with Brock Lesnar. Then you book that fight. There's no reason you couldn't do that fight at that point. And then, you know, he goes and beats Lesnar, then all sorts of doors open up for him. That's the way to do it. It's not even about risk, because I think Jones would beat Lesnar. Much tougher physically challenged, I think. But I think Jones beats Lesnar. But why even risk it?
Yeah.
Like, why even risk it?
I agree with you. I agree with you. I want to see Stipe Jones. That's the fight I want to see as well.
Right.
But
and that's the fight to make.
We know the UFC is looking for money grabs. And
but it's there. It's still there to grab. It's just you got to do things in the right order.
Right. And it will all depend on what's Lesnar's schedule. Does he want time?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he might be perfectly fine with that. And they'll be like, hey, you know, we're going to have Jones fight Stipe and you're going to fight the loser. And he might be perfectly fine with that. Okay, I need to get back in the gym and train mixed martial arts again as well. So that'll be perfect for me. And that might all work out. And that would be a better scenario. But as we know, the UFC always doesn't go with the best scenarios.
Yeah, no, and look, they pick right most of the time, and even when they don't pick right, it seems to work out. I have little interest in Lesnar because it's been 10 years since he won a fight. His last fight against Mark Hunt had so many question marks around it, and it's still weird with a lot of the stuff that went down there. You know, if you're a pro wrestling fan, hey, you love it, fine. I'm not. I don't care about pro wrestling. I don't care that Ronda Rousey's in the WWE. If they want to come back and fight and you're competitive, then I'm interested. That's my baseline. And I know that most people don't feel that way and don't think that way. I wish they would, because that's like a much more sporting perspective, meritocracy kind of thing. And I think that's missing from mixed martial arts in a lot of ways. So Lesnar returns, hey, great. You know, anything that draws eyeballs and attentions to MMA, fine, but you got to do it the right way. So I think there are real winners and losers, and it depends on the road that they take. There could be a lot of bad outcomes by Brock Lesnar coming back. People will think, oh, no, it's great. Just a big money showcase, cash grab. You can't go wrong. No, you can go wrong. Decisions, I think, need to be made in the right way for this to make a lot of sense. Jeff, I get back to my UFC 254 looks incredible. This graphic, the Chiron that I had up as the show started, it's my mistake. Very amateur hour here. Have you seen the card? You said you did. Khabib Nurmagomedov, the man himself, teased it. 2 champions, 2 former champions, 4 title challengers. How do you like this card full of killers? Best card of the year. Jeff, best card of the year. This honestly, and I'm not prone to hyperbole. If it works out this way, it could be the best UFC card on paper I've ever seen. Just talking about like the 5 pay-per-view fights here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you feel about that kind of statement? Best card you've ever seen.
I see that, and the first thought that comes to my mind is there's no way that all these fights end up on the same card.
Right.
That's my original thought.
So that's the loser scenario. That there's no way that this happens, right?
I'm thinking. I mean, Ferguson-Poirier is a great fight.
Yeah.
They could run a card by themselves.
Sure. No, I mean, Zabit Rodriguez is a main event. Whitaker Cannonier is a main event. I mean, on the right kind of fight night, Makhachev against Dos Anjos is a main event. You know, this is loaded.
Yeah, I would take the Ferguson-Poirier fight off of there, and build another event around that. But I'm looking at UFC's point of view. As a fan, yeah, this is incredible. It would be great. I really like the Ferguson-Poirier fight.
Isn't that fight on this card as a backup? Doesn't that make sense? Something happens in the main event, and you're like sitting there, and you know you got another title fight.
You could
fighters that are training.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense.
Yeah.
But the Khabib Gaethje fight is a great fight. I mean that's gonna.
It's not a great fight. It's one of the greatest fights we've ever seen in the UFC. I
Well,
believe that with
because
all
of
my heart.
Gaethje's last performance. Because of Gaethje's last performance, definitely put the nail in the
The course
coffin
of
for
his
that.
career and his last few performances, and then handling Ferguson the way he did, yes. And Khabib is unbeaten, and stylistically, Gaethje looks like all sorts of trouble for him. Absolutely. I mean, this is an incredible lightweight championship fight. I believe that 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, even if one of these fights fell off, it would still be an incredible card.
Yes, it would.
So, and that's good. That's good when you have a card that good that even if you lose one fight, the card's still going to be incredible.
Right.
That's
so the
because
winner loser scenario here is that the card doesn't meet up to expectations. Now everybody's talking about this level of card. I don't care what happens, honestly, to the rest of the fights. I'd love to see them all. I'd love to see them all in one night. I think it'd be the best bang for your buck that you got in a long time, maybe ever. But as long as Gaethje Nurmagomedov exists and happens in October on this night, this card is 100% worth the money, and you got to buy and pay attention to it. And that's
all it takes.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Losing that card, losing that fight, and then having the rest of the fights on here, I mean, it's still bittersweet. It's still bittersweet. So that's the extent of the card and how much it stands out to me is just like the depth and what you want from a night of UFC action. Last one here on winners and losers, Jeff. I am the one wearing an oversized MMA shirt tonight. I don't know if you can see me here. I'm wearing my Warrior shirt. This shirt is much too big for me. I look like I have a small head. It's like Beetlejuice when they're sitting in the room with the guys with the shrunken head. But what do you? Am I a winner or loser in this shirt, Jeff? Winner or loser?
I'm assuming that your closet's kind of like mine. As you can see, I just have a plain black shirt on, nothing today. But
that's usually my look, actually.
Yeah, I know that we both have shirts in there that we could pull out, and people would be like, "Whoa!" I mean, I kind of, like I said last week, I have a full walk-in closet, so I have a L shaped where I hang my shirts, and it's completely full.
Yeah,
and I usually stick to the middle of about 30 shirts. And the rest on the outside of those just sit there forever.
Yeah, of course, you never use them. Only on the worst laundry days.
Sometimes I look down, I cruise down a little bit, and I'm like, oh damn, I forgot I had that shirt. So I think it's great that we could pull shirts out that people are like interested in, and the best part is
I don't think I got as many as you. I don't think I have as many.
I don't even know where I got most of them.
Right.
So I know that
I got this on the press junket. I actually interviewed Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton and not Gary Busey, unfortunately. I would have loved to have interviewed him. But the director, Gavin O'Connor, they did a whole press junket. I was at ESPN at the time, and, they gave this away to media, and I grabbed it. I have another cool one from CBS. I think it was the night that Kimbo was supposed to fight Ken Shamrock. I have that shirt. I got a few. I have some old tap out shirts, but less than you would imagine, actually. I always kind of was like, oh, a promoter's giving away a shirt? No, thank you. I was quick to say no, like give them the hand. I'm not interested. So I missed out on a lot of grabbing opportunities,
A lot of those I used to take and just give them to people.
Yeah.
I remember what was it? Ken Shamrock.
Don Fry. I have that. That shirt's almost like shredded at this point. It's just disintegrating. But I still have. I haven't worn it in years, but I still have it.
I'm sure the one that they gave me never fit. But I think I think I still got it in the closet.
You could be like when you had the photographer vest and just taped two photographer vests together. You should have gotten two of the shirts and taped the shirts together.
That is not a true story.
It's not?
No, I didn't tape two together. There was only one. That I actually tried
around your neck, right?
I actually tried to steal.
Oh yeah.
That they got it back, but I will say that even though they did get their vest back, they got it back with a ketchup stain on it. Because I remember I was eating a hot dog one time before Pride, and freaking ketchup leaked out of the end of it and went right on the vest. And
they had hot dogs in those arenas.
They did. Really? And that was the only reason why I got it. I was like, dang, I've never really seen a hot dog in Japan. I got to try it. And it was at the concession stand.
A regular old hot dog?
Yeah, tastes fine. Tastes the same.
Great.
I mean, how different can a hot dog be?
It probably could be pretty different, I think. It could be. Anyhow, I'm a big winner, right, Jeff? I'm a big winner.
You won today.
Yes, I'm the big winner. And I think anybody watching this is a big winner, but that's just my opinion. Share this with your friends. Subscribe. As always, watch the fights. We will be back next week. September's crazy, man. I can't believe we're in September. The year suddenly feels like it's going by fast, even though it's not. It's the slowest year ever. But it's suddenly like, holy crap, we're in September. So
it's almost Christmas.
Almost. People starting their Christmas shopping. It's Labor Day weekend. We hope you have a great weekend, Jeff. You have any big plans?
No plans. Actually,
it's supposed to be like stupidly hot, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like 110 up here.
Yeah, 105 in LA, man. So that should tell you something.
Yeah, my daughter's going to a wedding, and my grandson broke his collarbone.
No.
16 months. He fell out of bed in the middle of the night. Broke his collarbone.
Okay.
So he's not feeling very well. So we were going to go try and do something this weekend, but she has a wedding to go to. So we said that we'd go ahead and watch the baby, since he has to wear this vest to try and keep his arm and his collarbone from moving so it could heal. Okay. So we'll be doing that. So it probably won't be very enjoyable, because I couldn't imagine how comfortable that is for a little kid to be wearing a vest and have a broken collarbone and not know how to say anything or tell you when it hurts or anything like that. So it could be a extra long weekend for me, but I'm just happy to have 3 days off work. So.
Yeah. Well, crank the AC, watch the fights on Saturday night. PGA Tour on Sunday is good, Jeff. It's a tour championship, so watch that. And
I'm involved in baseball right now.
You're on the baseball beat. Okay.
I've watched every Dodger game.
I can't. Yeah.
Watch it. Well, luckily my son got Major League Baseball Network, so that helped. He took the bill on that one. So he could watch the Red Sox games, and I don't even know if he's watching them anymore because they're so horrible. Yeah. But
he watched the Red Sox.
I just heard
he can watch movie bets. He can do that.
Yeah, and he hates them more now. So, but I just heard there's only 25 games left.
Yeah, no, it's more than halfway through. I mean, they had the trade deadline. So that's going to fly by, and then they'll do their playoffs. But sports are back in a big way. College football in some places is starting. NFL, not before long, will be back. So all these distractions. But Jeff hit it off the top of the show. The real winners register to vote, and they vote. And please do that. And I hope you don't mind if we hammer home that message here on this show as we get to it. For Jeff Sherwood, as always, I am Josh Gross. Thank you so much for watching The Outsiders. Have a great Labor Day weekend. We will catch you next week. Goodbye.